Not yet, no. You have 9 members of the committee.
Should we bring the meeting to the order? Any objection?
No, it's up to you.
All right, we're gonna bring the meeting to order. My name is Bobby Link, Robert Link. I am standing in for Carl Stryker, who's the chairman of the committee. I'm the vice chairman of the committee. Apart from all.
That's all right. Thank you.
Hey, Robert.
Hey.
Here you go again.
This is the March 11th, 2024 Land Use Committee meeting. Make sure, please, that you are signed in. If you're not on the sign-in sheet, you will not be reflected as attending for purposes of tonight's minutes, which I am also trying to type while conducting the meeting. So I'm going to do the best I can. Okay, so my understanding is that the subject of today's meeting is Wakefield Village, and that we have someone from city planning to make a presentation. Is that correct?
The applicant himself is here. Ron Shulman.
Okay, Ron Shulman is here. He's the applicant. Sorry. Mr. Shulman, you're recognized.
I just have one quick question, Bobby. George, can this be transcribed to help Bobby out so that he doesn't have to take notes while he's conducting this meeting?
I got it, Beatrice. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so we've got a little bit of feedback. If you're not speaking or presenting, if you wouldn't mind going on mute, thanks.
You ready for me to share the presentation?
Yes, thank you, Nora. I can't do it. I don't have the proper preferences set up, and I just tried.
Anyone want to be recognized before Mr. Shulman makes his presentation?
Oh,
Okay, so you guys let me know when you're ready.
Sure, I'll share it now. We'll get started. Thank you all.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So good evening, Board 12 Land Use Committee. Ron Shulman, Best Development Group. We're with Nora Martins, Doe Feinmeister, and Lauren from C&B, Lauren George. And we are presenting now, I think for the third time, Wakefield Village. This is our courtesy presentation before ULURP. I think you guys know this. Maybe some of you have heard it, maybe some of you have not. But this is the 6-acre parking lot right off the 241st Street Bridge south, large parking lot that NYPD uses, and that the landowners have owned for about 30 years. So we're representing the landowners, and also Joy Construction is the contractor developer with us. And you can see all the professionals that we have on the screen. We've been on this for, believe it or not, 7 years to get to this point, and we hope to get into ULURP this summer or spring summer. Next slide, please. Wakefield Village is going to be a village within a village. Basically, this is a large parcel that is away from the Wakefield neighborhood, about 300, 400 feet away, on its own landmass, if you will, across the street from the Metro North Wakefield station. And it's a transit-oriented development, similar to what city planning is doing with the Bronx Metro North East stations, you know, Hunts Point, Parkchester, and all the rest. We're doing the same thing here. We have this Metro North station across the street, number 2 train up the hill on White Plains Road, buses. So we've been proposing, and we've come to the conclusion of, I think, a nice presentation for you guys tonight, and we've upgraded it from last time. We were here about a year and a half ago. The site is bounded by, as you know, the 241st Street Bridge, and Baldwin Street runs under the site and serves the site right now. That's how the NYPD people get in there with their cars, and that's where they park the cars. The Wakefield Village is going to be built on a much lower landmass. As you know, the hill runs down from 241st Street. So White Plains Road is about 80 feet higher than the base plane here at Wakefield Village. Next slide. Community benefits, I think, are very large. We obviously, when you build this much affordable housing, you're going to see a tremendous boost to the local economy. Now, this whole project is going to be affordable, all affordable for people making, you know, we have a chart later in the presentation from 30,000 up to 130,000 for the rentals. And then there's a home ownership building where people can make a lot more too, like a co-op building. But this will pump a lot of money into the local economy, create approximately 882 construction jobs using MWB firms, local hiring, and then it will sustain 202 jobs on site and also have a spillover effect to create more jobs in the neighborhood, because it's been proven when you build affordable housing or any housing, the demand for goods and services goes up, and there's a ratio, and we've estimated 424 more permanent jobs in the local neighborhood. Now, the MTA is projected to upgrade this Metro North station. They have a capital plan budget, and they will make it ADA accessible and other improvements. In our development, we will include a large supermarket in the first building, daycare center, convenience retail, and dedicated parking on site. The parking will be in 2 decks because, as you know, the landmass at Wakefield is below 241st Street. So we have to build a podium up to get to the bridge. And instead of digging a big hole in the ground, normal construction style, we will be coming up from the ground, and we'll have parking below, which will accommodate all the NYPD folks and all the residents here. We estimate parking to be about 850 spaces or so. If we need more capacity, we could always do attended parking, and that number could go up to probably 1,000 parking spaces. We have a site for a public elementary school, although right now the secret manual and the data don't require a school on site. That's the latest finding. So right now, if we go through Euler, a school is not required, although we have our 5th building dedicated for a possible school in the future if the need is there. So we're holding that site as a potential school down the road. If a school's not needed down the road, then we would make it a community facility building, medical use, or something of that sort. Now, the affordability, as I said, wide affordability, housing for everybody between 30% to 130% of the area median income. And also, we will have one homeownership building, which will be a co-op building, probably in the neighborhood of 100, 150 units for co-op buyers. There's also a large park, and you'll see this as we go through the slides, which is open space that'll be open to the residents of this community and also people in the neighborhood. Next slide, please. So this is the landmass if you're looking from the sky. This is what it looks like right now. It's just a bunch of cars, storage, and what have you. Really not serving much to the community, not providing much. It does serve the NYPD, and we will continue to keep the lease for those folks. But it doesn't really do anything good for Wakefield or New York City. So we're going to turn this into housing. Next slide. The site plan calls for 3 different parcels, if you will, the A, B, and C parcels. And the A1, A2 buildings would be the first buildings built. Those would be rental buildings, mixed income rental buildings. And that's where on the A1, A2, that's where the supermarket and other retail will be located to activate the site and bring people to this site. The parking entrance is also in the A1, A2. So when people come off the 241st Street Bridge, they will enter into the A1, A2 building. They don't have to travel the whole length of this development. That's where they park the cars, right where that A2, you'll see an indentation to the building. That's the parking entrance. Then the B1 building will be a senior building. B2 will be a mix. We'll make a combined building of rental and home ownership, probably with 2 different entrances. C1 is where the educational or community facility use would be, and then C2 is a residential tower. And you see, as the site comes to a point, that's where the open space or park is. Very green site, trees all along the roads, and there's 1 road in and 1 road out. We got rid of 2 entrances because that was preferred in the site plan meetings with city planning. And there is an emergency access where that little number 4 is on the right side to get emergency vehicles in to the east side of the development if necessary. Next.
Mr. Shulman, do you mind if I interrupt for a second?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay, just while I have this slide up, this is Bobby. Are you saying that you can enter both commercial and residential vehicles would enter from that 241st Street Bridge and then pull into that gray area right there where it's labeled A1, A2?
The entrance can be accessed by both commercial and residential, but the parking ramp is principally for residential cars. Commercial deliveries can be made on off the deck, but large deliveries will come under the deck on Baldwin Street, and sanitation will come in under the deck to take garbage away, not on the deck, but below, so that refuse will be collected below the deck. And deliveries can also be made below the deck also,
So
with
that's
elevators.
connection to, also to 244th Street, or is that a different street that's connecting that parking lot to, the rest of the neighborhood?
Good question. Baldwin Street, as you guys know, is a small street that runs under the bridge now. That's how people get in now, right there where the cursor is moving. Baldwin Street will remain. We will improve it, make it better. So the police department will come in that way. We will also have the ability to have sanitation trucks come in that way, and deliveries. So like the community facility building, which we thought was a school, we thought that was a perfect idea to bring in deliveries under the deck right to the school in the basement, and then they would load up elevators and bring up supplies to the school. That'll probably be another use, but that's okay. But principally speaking, the deck will be for cars, also, for FedEx deliveries, UPS, and, ride shares, etc.
So I just want to understand all the egress and entrance points. Is that just 3 and 4, or are there more?
It's really 3. So basically, there'll be a signalized light there. Sam Schwartz Engineering is our traffic engineer, one of the top firms in the city. They've designed a plan that will have cars come in and out. There'll be a signal on the bridge, and there'll be crosswalks on the bridge too, to get people safely across 241st Street to the Metro North Station. As you guys know, there's really no crosswalk there, so it's kind of dangerous to park your car on the bridge, jump out, and get to the train. So we're going to make it safer with a signal and a crosswalk, and we will have, the ample turning to get cars in and out of the one driveway, which is where the number 3 is. Correct.
And you feel pretty good about fire safety vehicles getting in and out?
Yes, that's a great question. We met with the FDNY a long time ago. They took a look at the site. We studied the turns, and actually Sam Schwartz Engineering did restudy the turns, for, I forget what size truck it is, but the fire trucks coming in, to make sure there's ample turning ability to get around every building and get to every possible angle if they had to.
Okay, I just wanted to, while you had that slide up, ask.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Great question. Okay, let's go to the next one. So this is if you're standing like on the platform at 241st, looking over. The buildings are massed to an R7 large scale plan, R7 with a commercial overlay. And we're creating density here. And I think we've told you guys this 2 times before. We're creating density in a place which is far away from other homeowners and apartment dwellers. In order to create this project to make it feasible, we're projecting somewhere between 1,150, 1,165 units. Now, it's not all going to be built at once. Once this starts, this is probably a 10-year build, because we have to phase the project with construction, and also we have to phase it with the financing. So the first building on the right side is the A1, A2, and that would be mixed income rental with many different incomes in that building. And that would have the ground floor retail space, the supermarket, and other uses. That will activate the site. And we will also have the parking ramp built in that first stage too, so parking can get down to the initial areas of the parking garage. While we're building this, we're going to move the New York Police Department parking to the back of the site, to the south part of the site, away from construction, so that we can build the first building. Ultimately, down the road, when we're done, the police department gets covered parking, because right now it's open parking, but they'll ultimately have a garage for all their vehicles. This is how it will look once it's completed. Next slide. Okay, so now we're standing at the base of the bridge. I think it's Bullard Avenue, if I'm not mistaken. We're looking up at the site. The sidewalks, we've been talking with DOT, and we're going to be widening the sidewalks in coordination with the DOT engineers to make them safer and also wider. But this is what it would look like. We're standing down, the bridge rises up and it kind of peaks where our site is. And it has a very, I think, kind of iconic look as you come up to the bridge. Next slide. This is if you're coming into the site off the bridge. This is, as you did say before, the gentleman was speaking, this is the main entranceway. So this is the main road coming in and out. And as you see, the market is right there. There's a large plaza in the beginning to activate the site, a lot of seating. So the cars be coming in, and then the residents could come home, go right into the market, get something, go home. And there's sidewalks, lots of sidewalks all over this site to keep pedestrians away from the cars.
Mr. Bullard, just to interrupt again, or Mr. Schulman, is this Bullard Street?
We're looking on the bridge. This is our new podium connecting to the bridge.
Got it.
So if you are standing on the bridge right now, we will be cutting the rail and we're not connecting to the bridge. It'll be an abutment like a bridge. It'll be like an expansion joint. So basically our podium will abut the bridge, the railing will be cut, and we'll be designing buffer barriers, safety barriers. So if a car ever went askew, they would, hit probably a landscape barrier. So we'll make it safe that way. But this is if you're standing on the bridge looking into the new development, which now doesn't appear because if you stand on the bridge right now, you're looking down about 30 feet to the parking lot.
Mr. Schulman?
Yes,
That building in the foreground, that's A1, right?
that's correct. That's the A1 building.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no worries. And as you look way down the driveway, you'll see the buildings appear, the B buildings, and then at the far end is the C tower, the C2 building. But this is going to look, kind of look and feel, I think, a little bit like Battery Park City, where there's lots of trees, landscaped, a planned, kind of a planned community, and it's all affordable housing, workforce housing, moderate and even middle income housing. Okay, so now we're standing on the platform. So the platform, of course, is across the street on the north side of the bridge. And if you're standing on the platform, this is what it looks like as the development rises. We've taken the train many times from this station back to the city. You can go to White Plains. It's about 28 minutes from here to Grand Central, or about the same amount of time to get up to White Plains. Obviously, the stairways are there, but they're going to put an elevator, I don't know exactly where, but an elevator to get down to this platform. And this is...
I could just jump in quickly on the MTA accessibility upgrades. They're still in conceptual design, although it's been funded in their capital plan. But they're planning, I think, on putting in elevators on both the north and southbound sides, and also extending the platforms on both sides southward.
Right. So thanks, Nora. This platform, as you guys know, is a pretty short one. The train travel here is not that much. It's like, I think, half the amount of Woodlawn and what's the other station? Williamsbridge. This one is not as well traveled, but it will be picking up a lot more customers. And Metro North is very excited that we'll be building something here, because we actually have to buy a strip of land from Metro North, which runs in the middle of our project. It's like a very unusable strip of land, but we have to buy it from them to make the whole site one. Okay, next slide. This is if you're standing on the bridge looking at A1, A2, but it's on the other side. So we're actually standing on the side of the bridge, which would be going closer back up the hill towards White Plains Road. And the market, the supermarket will probably wrap both buildings, and we have room for a cafe. We even have room for a pop-up farmer's market on this plaza in the summertime. It's going to be a pretty open, activated space, well lit. And, obviously a lot of people coming and going because this is a big development, and it's just got a lot of potential. Next slide. This is just a closer look inside, that plaza area, where how wide it is for people to sit. Also, to have these pop-up markets and so on. The sidewalks are very wide to keep people safe. And this is the side where we took away the road. But if an emergency vehicle is necessary, it's wide enough to get emergency vehicles into this space. Next slide. This is just a picture of the road that goes around the B buildings. showing you how there's a separation between the sidewalks and the cars. And also that school bus in the distance was an illustrative view of where the school would be, but there doesn't seem to be a need right now. But it is designed to accommodate a school. And when we did the research, there would be very few students bused from off this campus. It would be only a few buses. Most of the kids would be walking to school, but the need isn't really there. So the SCA was not interested in pursuing a school here. I think they're pursuing a school elsewhere in this school district, though. Again, we're down at the further end of the site where that school or community facility use building is. You can see the C building rising, and then there's an kind of an underpass. You can go right under that building, the C2 building, into the park. You can see the scale of this site is so big, but yet cozy, because there's a lot of green, a lot of walkways, and of course the park at the end, which is a great amenity for the whole development, and it's open to the public too. Next slide. This is a view of the park. If we're standing at the edge of the last building, we'd be looking into this park. Our landscape architect is MPFP Landscape Architecture. They've designed this, and of course, this will be an amenity that the whole development will appreciate, and we will maintain and take care of the park. Next slide. This is if you're standing in the park looking back north at the development. So if you're at the tip of the southern tip of this site looking back, this is what it looks like with, it gets narrower in the pointy part, but it's still wide enough to enjoy. And you can see the view from the people who live in this last building will have an amazing view of the city, Bronx, and all the way into Manhattan. Just another view of the site where that school building would be, and the underpass of building C2. And you can see you can see there's sidewalks, the whole perimeter of this project. City planning and I think some of the school safety folks, but city planning wanted sidewalks. We have sidewalks everywhere to keep people safe in development. Next slide. Okay, we're looking between the A and the B buildings. Just again, there's this retail plaza. This retail plaza where people can be, that you can have open outdoor seating, you can have gathering. It's just an open, nice look, the whole development. Nora, can you go over these actions?
Sure, thanks, Ron. So in order to facilitate this development, which is a really exciting transformational project right by the Metro North Station, we need some action city planning that require us to go through the ULURP process, which is where the community board obviously plays an important role.
I'm sorry, guys. I hear background in the noise in the background, and I can't hear the presenters.
Well, I think it's coming from one of the presenter screens. We just.
Okay, so if everyone can mute except the presenter, that'd be great. Thank you, Bobby.
Go ahead, Nora.
Sure. So the actions that the project requires, the land use actions include a zoning map amendment. The property is currently zoned M11, which is a light manufacturing district, low density manufacturing district that really allows very limited uses and very limited bulk. We're looking to rezone that to an R71, which is a moderate density residential district with a C24 commercial overlay. We're actually not even maximizing the residential floor area in the R71. We're going to be coupling it with a large scale special permit, which allows more control by city planning and by the process over what actually gets built at the site. Basically, the envelopes that you see presented to you is what can ultimately be built if that's what's approved. Sometimes rezonings, there are illustrative plans, but they're not coupled with the special permit, so you don't have that same degree of transparency about what will ultimately be built on the site. We're also looking at a text amendment, which is necessary to create the mandatory inclusionary housing area. That's what mandates that at least a minimum 25 to 30% of any residential built on the site is permanently affordable. As Ron said, it's going to be a 100% affordable project, which is financed according to the HPD term sheets. But this is a permanently affordable requirement, which I know the board is familiar with. In addition to the large scale special permit, we have two other special permits. One is, well, the large scale is requesting a few waivers. We're not maximizing the floor area, but we are modifying lot coverage because of the platform, that we technically have 100% lot coverage, even though we have a ton of open space on the site. Also side yard height and setback regulations to allow for the massing that you saw. And then we'll have a separate special permit to permit an accessory parking garage in excess of 150 spaces. We heard loud and clear the need for housing here, so we are housing and parking. So we're trying to maximize the amount of parking that we can put into this project. And then related actions that are not subject to ULURP, but part of the project are the sale of that MTA property that runs, this small strip of property that runs between our owned properties, and then funding from public agencies.
Great, thanks, Nora.
Any questions on that?
No questions.
Okay. Sustainability. So we're going to be building the latest and greatest of sustainability. We've already started talking with Bright Power as a potential sustainability consultant, but solar panels, Energy Star appliances, high efficiency light fixtures, leak monitors at every cold water riser, landscaping plan to potentially use gray water. So using the water back in the plants to minimize runoff, water detention systems installed in the project to mitigate stormwater flooding. Our civil engineer will design all this, of course. And obviously it's transit oriented because we can walk to Metro North #2 buses. And if people bike, you can bike from here. One thing that we will mention, and maybe we'll go back to the site plan, we have to connect to the sewer over on Bullard Avenue. We have Langen Engineering designing that, where we have to build a micro tunnel underneath the Metro North tracks to get over to Bullard Avenue. They've already designed it and they've done the initial calculations. The sewer is capable of servicing the site. We will probably bring domestic water in that way. And there's electricity on the site right now, of course, for the lighting, but that has to be upgraded. So the utilities will probably be running underneath Metro North in a micro tunnel, which has been done before elsewhere, ironically on other projects in the Bronx under the Metro North tracks. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this is our, and I apologize if it's small, but this is our facts and figures type of slide, and we can share this PowerPoint deck with you. The development, again, as we spoke about, it would be basically 4 different closings. The first one would be A1 and A2 together, 130 units, and a wide range of incomes, people making as little as 23. Let's say there's a person who wants a studio earning 23, 24, 25, 30,000, they can move in. A 2-wage couple earning 144,000, they can move in. So this development will have a wide net of affordability, especially in the first part of it. The first stage will be rental. The second stage, B1, will be senior independent living. Seniors living on their own, but we will work with a nonprofit to provide services on site as they need them and design a space where seniors can age in place and live comfortably in their own building. We're projecting about 165 units for that second building. The third building will be probably a combination where it's B2, home ownership and rental. We have 250 units to choose from, and this is going to be the one where we really custom make the building. We'll work with HPD on the number of home ownership units. They like the idea, but maybe we can only do 100. Maybe we can do 150 home ownership units. As many as we can do. We're going to try to maximize the home ownership component, and then the rental will be the remainder of that B2 building. The last building will be like the first one, building C, which is really C2, and that'll be about 267 units of housing. Now, the mix of apartments, we have 40% 2s and 3s in the whole development. That's our commitment, family living, 40% 2s and 3s. When you take out the senior building, because the senior building, as you know, is mostly 1s and studios, there are 24 twos. But when you take out that senior building, we're up to about 45% 2 and 3 bedroom apartments in the family buildings. So we're pretty proud that we're, reaching that goal of larger apartments for, larger families with people who want to stay here a long time. As I said before, the development will take about 10 years. We put, estimated dates of each phase, and those dates will change, but that's kind of a representational look of how the project would start phase by phase by phase. Let's say it goes from 2026 to 2035 or whatever the starting point is. This is about a 10-year building project. And we've done this before. This would be our third large scale project. We did Webster Commons over on Webster Avenue, north of Gun Hill. That was 5 buildings, 483 units. And we also did St. Anne's Terrace down on St. Anne's and 156th Street in the Bronx, which was 8 buildings and 641 units. So this team knows how to build phased large projects, and we've done it before. Okay. Questions? Question mark. So we're happy, guys, to go back anywhere in the project presentation to answer any questions that you have. And we thank you again. This is our third presentation before ULURP for you folks, and we always have an open dialogue. We are committed to always being open to talk to you guys about this project at any time.
Do we have any questions from anyone in the meeting?
Yes.
Yeah, Robert, this is me. I would like to ask him quite a few questions, if you don't mind.
All right.
Is that okay?
Go ahead. I was asking in the meeting first, but go ahead.
Okay. I want to know, who did your EIS?
Sam Schwartz Engineering.
Oh, he did both, traffic flow and EIS?
Yes, they're doing the traffic and environmental engineering.
All right, that's great, because he's the best. I appreciate that. I worked a lot with his people when I was on the job.
Okay.
At Port Transit. Now, the other question I have, and this is, probably not going to happen, but I want to see if it does happen. If they extend the BX39 bus into the complex because of the volume of people that you're going to have there, is there enough room to turn the bus around? They need 35, the articulated buses need a 35-foot turning radius, and the short buses need a 40-foot turning radius for some reason. So would the bus be able to turn around if it is extended into the complex?
It's a great question, and we've studied this before. Dove, do you remember where we landed on that? Dove Feinmester is one of our architects that's been on this since the beginning with the bus.
Mentioned.
Dove, I'm sorry, we can't hear you.
Oh, can you not hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, better.
Yes, go ahead.
All right. We had assumed at one point that it would actually be on site, and we even had some discussions, very preliminary discussions with MTA about that. So the site can currently accommodate bus turns and even has a potential space for a bus stop if that were required. Keep in mind that we had initially had a school on the site, so we had also designed it to accommodate school bus turns and fire truck turns, as we had mentioned earlier. It cannot accommodate an articulated bus, but it can accommodate non-articulated buses.
What I want to say, articulated buses have a shorter turning range than the 40-foot buses. So why wouldn't it be able to accommodate an articulated bus?
That's a valid question. It's possible that it can. All I'm saying is that specifically wasn't studied. So I'm sorry if I misrepresented that, but I don't remember us studying articulated buses specifically. We studied the standard 40-footers, and they can make the turn.
I tell you, the future is articulated buses. So, I mean, I would ask you to go back to the drawing board and see how you can accommodate them, especially since their turning radius is shorter than a 40-foot bus.
Yeah, well, I mean, Sam Schwartz isn't on this call, but I'm sure that they could speak to it. And if it is,
you know what? You tell him that Carl Stricker told him to investigate it.
Okay.
And he'll laugh.
We will.
Because we worked together on a lot of projects with turning radiuses on buses. It was Sam and myself who started the bus lane project back in the 70s. So I have a lot of faith in him. He was Assistant Commissioner of Transportation at that time. And I worked with him on many projects and his staff. So, yeah, I think he'll smile when you ask him, but he will, I believe he would take a look at that.
We'll go back to them. Yeah, we'll go back.
All right. Thank you. I don't believe I have any other questions, but thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Go ahead, you got a question?
Okay, hi. So I lived on Bronx River Road in the 80s and the 90s. So where that 241st Street bridge ends is smack in Yonkers. Has there been any outreach done to whoever the council member is for that region of Yonkers to make nice in advance of, you know, construction, trucks coming in, increased, you know, traffic, whatever? Is that something we need on our radar, I guess?
It's a great question. Nora, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think city planning reached out to Yonkers. Is that correct?
Nora, you're
Nora.
muted.
Sorry. Yes, they did at the beginning of the process. I don't know what any recent discussions have been.
Yeah, we understand the question. So we believe that city planning reached out to their, you know, their colleagues over at Yonkers to advise them of the project.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Go ahead.
Do you want to go back to the, Nora, do you want to go back to the site plan? Because I think that would be helpful for everybody instead of the question mark. Yeah, thank you.
Sure. I don't know. Sorry, 1 second. I'm pulling it.
You're next. Yeah, go ahead. We have a question in the meeting. Go ahead.
Hello, Mr. Schulman. My name
Hi.
is Echevarria. I would like to thank you for this wonderful project. It's very exciting. I believe it would be a great thing for this part of the Bronx and the Wakefield area. And one of my concerns are union jobs as well as jobs that it can bring to the Bronx. Have you brought to the table any of the union trades as far as construction?
It's a good question, and we've been contacted by unions already. Yeah, so we will sit down and discuss the project with them. The contractor's aware of the unions out there, of course, carpenters and all the rest. So yeah, we're open to talking to the unions. It's not a problem, but we just have to remind everybody it is an all affordable project. So I mean, we have to keep the rents lower. So we do have constraints with. You know, this has to be built as efficiently as possible, but we will talk to everybody. And also, the local hiring is a big thing. We want to recruit local tradespeople, subcontractors, suppliers. Obviously, that will be an economic boost for people in this North Bronx area. And actually, it's better for the general contractor to have local people to get to the job. You know, especially, you know, instead of commuting an hour and a half from Brooklyn or Queens, if they live in the Bronx, they can get to work on time. So that's what we will be focusing on.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Luke Zaudos. I really like this presentation. I think it's a great example of how we can utilize some of the space that we have in our district. And it's, you know, really stunning. I think any of us can admit that if we won the lottery for an apartment here, it would be a dream come true, especially when you've got 26-minute commutes to Grand Central, very accessible. And what you did with the site design, it looks really impressive.
Thank you.
Some things that I just wanted to flag, I was looking over that last breakdown, and I don't know who your super is, but it sounds like Superman, because one super for a 267 unit building
Oh, yeah, okay. We,
It's challenging.
yeah, no, we can adjust that, I'm sorry. Those will be adjusted. That was an initial count, but there's gonna probably, the larger buildings will have 2 supers, I agree. And the amount of porters here will be quite large, because not only will the porters take care of the buildings, but they'll be taking care of the grounds. So we will have hire porters who are skilled in, snow removal from the sidewalk, and obviously being able to do landscaping, around the buildings. If we need a landscaper to come in to do the park, then we'll hire a landscaper to do that. But the amount of personnel in each building, the formula that we use with HDC in the city is we're at 1 person per every 65 units. So we'll adjust those numbers. They might be off. So every 65 units, there's a person, a super or porter. And all the buildings, of course, will be new, so you won't have those normal leaks and, lead paint and all that stuff. So it's really about keeping the buildings clean, and up, the upkeep. It's about managing the new asset, because these are all brand new buildings.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sure.
Another thing is, I ride a bike a lot. Anybody on the transportation committee will tell you. And I biked here. And biking on 241st Street is really challenging. I love that you're expanding sidewalks, and I love that you've got bollards and other types of treatments on your roadways inside the complex. But I'm wondering if there are any consideration that you can have for cyclists. How can we bike safely? More families are choosing it as a healthy option.
It's a good question. Dove, do you remember, did we study a bike lane on the bridge? Because I don't know if we had enough room or not.
So we did see a bike lane on the bridge early on. We don't currently show it. It's not completely off the table. We're just at a stage right now where we're touching on the bridge very lightly, because it's outside the scope of our project and our ownership. So, there will be discussions with DOT about that, and about seeing how that might be accommodated. They've raised it, right,
Yeah.
as an item that they're interested in too. And while we're not showing dedicated bike lanes on the platform, the reason for that being we could not achieve sidewalk width that the city was asking for in the bike lane. But we do have a lot of plaza space and very wide sidewalks. So off the record, it's very wide, but there's a lot of space. And I think there'll be plenty of space for cyclists. If you take that emergency road, for example, that we've supplied, that's now.
I mean, what I'm hearing from Dove is that there's not necessarily going to be bike lanes. They're exploring it, but there is ample space in the plazas and on the sidewalks.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. The bridge itself, as you know, is not terribly wide. So we have to be very economical in the lane widths and having a left turn, or I guess whatever the turn is, into the building. But in the plaza itself, in our own development, if we can make a bike lane, I mean, we're not against it, obviously. And walking the whole width of or the circumference of our project is possibly a walk. We can make a walking path in the whole development, because it's a large development. But biking is look, your point is well taken. Biking from here, you can get so many different places from this location.
It is worth noting that we really worked on making the site plan pedestrian centric, because vehicular parking is incredibly minimal. Right? Most people are parking underneath the deck in the parking lot, and the access to that parking is happening at Building A. So beyond your lift, there's very little traffic.
Right. So Dove, you're breaking up a little bit, but the point is well taken. Nora, if we could go back to the site plan, please. The deck itself is really pedestrian centric, because when the cars come in off the bridge, they're going into the first building. So there's not going to be a lot of traffic, going around the buildings quickly, because if you're going to park there, you're going into that first building, going into your parking spot, and going to the building location where you live, using a fob key to get into your building. So the plaza itself will be primarily for pedestrians, and you'll have a UPS truck or FedEx truck come in, and so on. But it really is going to be a good place for people to walk safely with their kids too.
That sounds great. Another question. I'm glad you're in retail, supermarkets. If you don't have to own a car, even better. If you can access your groceries within a 10-minute walk, that's awesome. Also, if you are looking at smaller retail spots like restaurants that people can use, they're easier to rent out, and offers opportunities for local business people to bring different opportunities here.
Yeah, we have space for a couple of small restaurants. We definitely want a grocery store because we know that's going to be needed, and we want a food market, as you say, walk to the market and walk home, instead of going up to White Plains Road or wherever. So we want a supermarket. We've already talked to a broker who actually, is looking at a potential user, and they're interested. So this is our first thing, is to secure a supermarket, and then the ancillary retail that feeds off the market. That's our goal. And we will have a daycare center here too, because we know there's going to be a need for a daycare center. Once the B buildings are built, you'll have approximately, you'll have a little over 2/3 of the units in place, which probably will be sufficient to have a daycare center.
Whenever there are privately owned public spaces in New York City, city planning often requires signage saying that, hey, this is a privately owned public space, all are welcome here. Is there going to be any kind of signage for people walking down 231st Street so that they know that they're allowed to enter this space?
That's a great question. I think the answer is yes. We will, we could do signage to say, public park open from whatever New York City park hours are. I don't remember, dawn to dusk or something like that. We don't want people hanging out in the park at night for safety reasons, of course. And but we would invite people during the day, of course, to use it. Yeah.
Okay. And
along those lines, I had a question.
Well, let Luke finish up his last question.
Sure.
Last question, and I did want to recognize the question in the chat from Dwayne, I think. But so you tell us you're maximizing the car parking potential, but you're not maximizing all the floor area. I think that, from a point of view of, hey, this project is going in, it's great that you're building so much affordable housing, but if you have the ability to build a few more units to maximize your floor area, you should consider adding at least a couple of market rate, or see how you can do, because if you're not maximizing the floor area that you're asking for, I think that might be a little bit of a missed opportunity.
No, we agree with you. We want to maximize all the FAR floor area of the project as best as possible. We have been working with city planning, for, as we said, like 6 or 7 years on this. So the exercise is pretty much done, but if we find ways to use whatever's left on the table, we will in that last development, which is the C1, C2 building complex. Yeah, that's a good point.
George is in the
No, let Dwayne, he's been waiting.
Go ahead, Dwayne. You're recognized to ask a question. Dwayne.
Thank you. So as I listen, well, first off, thank you for this presentation. As I listen, I'm, visualizing the end result, and I was just wondering if there's any measures that are going to be put in place to mitigate any potential decline in the quality of life, specifically speed reducing measures. As as many may know, a lot of people like to, floor the gas pedal in making the environment unsafe. So are there going to be any like security guards at these developments? Are there going to be speed reducing measures in the roadways that are adjacent to the property as well as on the property? you know, that's where I'm going with this is, are there going to be any quality of life assurances to kind of maintain things at a status quo level to prevent things like loitering, inappropriate entering of the development?
It's a good question. And it's a fair question. So to answer your question about speeding, we do have, correct me if I'm wrong, Dove, but I think we have raised walkways where you have to slow down. You can't, you know, in the development go fast. On the bridge itself, there's also going to be signalized changes. So with this, whenever there's a signal, that will help, people will have to inherently slow down. Okay, so that will be a good deterrent. As far as quality of life of loitering, you know, the whole project is going to be well lit. There'll be cameras all over the place, and especially in the parking garage. Tons of cameras up on the where the people enter the building, lots of light. And as far as patrolling, like with the security, you know, once the building complex is fully built, if it's needed, we could have a night, you know, security patrol, if you will, you know, a dedicated 1 or 2 person team, just, you know, with a small vehicle, just patrolling the site if we have to.
There will still, the parking lot will partially be used by the NYPD still.
Oh yeah, the cops are going to be there. I mean, that's a
So there
great
will be a
deterrent.
presence in the area.
Right. So the NYPD officers who work across the street, they're going to be parking their cars in this complex all the time. So de facto, there's police presence. Will they be up on the deck? They might be, because they might want to come up and grab a sandwich or go to the market or something. So you might have, you know, police officers just patronizing the retail, which now that I'm speaking out loud is a good thing. So that will be helpful for our own project. Yeah.
Ron, can you just discuss the feedback from the precinct, if there's been any?
It's a good question. There's a lease right now. The landowners have a lease, which has been extended. They've been leasing to the NYPD for, I think, 20 years or so, maybe longer. As you know, the lease goes through general services to, you know, negotiate the next length of the lease. Whenever it comes up, they'll obviously work cooperatively to extend it. I think they know something's coming, and, you know, we will work cooperatively with them. The parking lot is not used in full, so we can move them as we have to away from the construction to make it safe for them and safe for the construction team. You know, I don't think we've had extensive conversations, but we've been very amenable to talking.
Okay, you're back. Sorry, we Ron, we just missed that last 20 seconds or so. You want to just?
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, so the landowners talk to the NYPD whenever there's a question, because they're renting to the NYPD. We want to make sure they're happy. There's a lease extension coming up. I think it's next year or the year after. We've already had 1 or 2 lease extensions in the time that we've been developing this project. And the goal is to keep the police officers there. You know, for us, they're a good tenant. The city pays the rent. And we think it's a community service for Board 12, because where the heck are they going to park, right? There's not enough parking, so we will keep them on the lot. They presently have up to 400 spaces, but they don't use them. So whenever we recast the lease, when this whole parking garage is built, it's probably going to be like 250 to 300 if they need it, and then the rest of it will be for the residents and shopping if people are going to come to shop.
George had some questions.
Well, we have Anthony, Reed, Ariel, and
Okay.
Beatrice all have questions.
All right, so
Hands
then
raised.
we'll start with Anthony. You're recognized with your question.
Yes, hello. I think this is a great project, but my concern is you didn't have too much energy when the young lady spoke about unions and apprenticeship programs and bringing training and bringing careers to the community. Because what happens is you guys come in our community, and when you leave, the same people was at the same place. Like, and we wanted to make a difference. This is going to be a big project. You said 10 years. I think that you really need to make it an important issue to actually sit down with the unions now, because they do have affordable type of contracts that you might be able to sit down and make something work over here. Because I'm one of the many members that are union in this district over here, and we see a lot of projects like the project you talked about on Webster Avenue that went non-union. Like, we need to work together because, you know, the union is the community is the union. So
Yeah.
I would appreciate if you have a number of somebody that's actually dealing with, talking with the unions, if you could just put that number in the air
Sure.
and we can have them reach out to you, because it didn't seem like you reached out to them. It seemed like they reached out to you. And I think it needs to be both ways.
Okay, understood. Sorry for the lack of enthusiasm, but we are willing and we are reaching out to the unions. Our consultants on this call are arranging those meetings, and we're going to be talking to you guys. So,
So who do you guys reach out to so far?
Lauren, are you on the call?
Yes. Hi.
Okay.
We've spoken and we have not sat down yet with the carpenters, and we have reached out to laborers local 79. As in terms of local hiring, I think they have a great track record of working with communities such as Wakefield, and definitely a broad membership base there. So those are, I mean, the two so far. But if there's others that you'd like to suggest, I'll definitely put my information in the chat and you can reach out to me, Mr. Reed.
Okay, because they do have a building trades where all the trades they come together to actually make projects like this work. So, you know, someone will definitely get back to you. If you leave your information in the chat, I would appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Ariel, you're recognized with a question.
Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me very well?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I have a couple of points that I would like to ask, and if you have any information on. So one of the things that I wanted to state was mostly the fact that I understand that you guys are building in the Wakefield community. I do not know what your background is in the Wakefield community. It just seems that there is a private building or a private community that's being built inside of the community. The reason why that is a worry is that we are revamping our own community as far as White Plains Road goes, all the way from Gun Hill to 241st, that has a lot of small businesses. I would like to understand, how does your building, except for you thinking that it's going to provide housing for people, how are you contributing to our neighborhood? Because we are contributing more to your development than I see that's being given to the community. That's one of my questions.
It's a fair question. Personally, I did the rezoning with the team that's building right now at 241st and White Plains Road. Nora also did a rezoning in this area, which I think was on Furman and White Plains Road. I've been in affordable housing over 35 years, so I've financed and developed projects all over the Bronx. This whole team has extensive experience. I've done most of my work in the Bronx. My family's from the Bronx. I used to live in the Bronx. I know it very well. I think to answer your question, though, this development is definitely going to benefit the main Wakefield community on White Plains Road, because we can't provide every retail service in this 3-building complex. People who live here are definitely going to be shopping on White Plains Road, going to beauty salon, going to a doctor, going to whatever is offered on White Plains Road that we don't offer here, because it's the next shopping area. And everybody who does not going to take Metro North, they're going to walk up the hill to the number 2, or take the bus or wherever they're going. So when you have 1,150 families living here, there's going to be an economic positive impact to the White Plains Road merchants community. It's definitely going to happen.
Okay, I think that I would hope that there will be more outreach to that with the community, except for us, and in general, when we're planning things, expecting the trickle-down effect of it actually happening, of having residents have the resource of knowing what's in the area, because there are going to be 2 groups. There are going to be a lot of influx of new residents that are not going to kind of know the area, and a lot of times when there's everything provided in your community, you don't go outside of that to figure out. And not everybody is taking the Metro North, depending on if they're, whatever ways they're not taking that. So that was one of my questions that
Sure.
I felt a little bit alarmed to. The other one is, how much is actually going to be low income and or residential, because there is a very wide gap between I don't remember that slide, if you can pull it up. The
Yeah,
senior
it's one of our
citizen,
last slides.
yeah, the senior citizen wide range was very fitting. I think that range that we were giving, it seemed like more of a representation of the AMI, and I understand how that goes. But I'm my priority is my community, is CB12, and I want to make sure that just because there's this wide range of 23,000 to 144,000, that it's not going to tilt more into the higher income range of people, even though
You're,
it's giving.
yeah, you're asking a great question. So if we're closing that first A1, A2 project, the way that it would be structured is that the city requires us to have 50% of the units at 50% of AMI or below. So roughly speaking, that's people making, let's say, up to 50 or 60,000 or below. The rest of the project would be above that. So you're going to have housing, as I said before, basically for everybody in every different, economic area, as well as the size of the household. You could have a single person who, let's say there's a kid who graduates college, graduates Baruch College, is a
You cut out.
Just lost you for a second, Ron. I don't know if you can hear us.
I can hear you, Ron.
I can hear you.
Is it us or him?
Uh-oh. Ron, we can't
Yeah,
hear
he
you.
thinks he's talking. Ron, you went mute. We cannot hear you.
the lower side, and
No,
then
now you're back on. Ron, you were cut off and now you're back on.
oh, sorry about that. As I was saying, there's
The
a
college student when you got cut off.
Something about Baruch, yeah.
yeah. I was just saying, let's say there's a young kid who graduates Baruch College, he's an accountant working in the city. That person can live here. Okay. I've heard before from the elected officers, you guys, that when kids come back from college, they can't find a place to live. Or young couples, they get married, they want to start a family. Where do they live? So that's the type of people we want to serve. And then in that second building, we've heard it a million times, where do seniors live? Well, we're trying to build a senior building so seniors can live in this complex. But I wanted to go back to one point this young lady was making before. We did reach out to Councilmember Dinowitz. We've spoken to him about 6, maybe 8 times now. In so many meetings we've had with Councilmember Dinowitz. And he wants us to meet with local groups here in Board 12. We're happy to do it. We're happy to meet if you have a merchants association or other community association. If you want us to educate them on the project, we're happy to do it. We can do it now. We can do it during ULURP. I mean, we're not going to be building anything for a couple of years, so there's plenty of time to meet. So George, if you want to, or anybody on your board wants to have us meet with the larger groups, the groups that are really active, we'll be happy to do that.
Sure, I think that would be nice. And also, just to convey the point that you made, I understand that, but there's always a flip side to that. So you do have people that are not able to come back in, but we're also losing community people here when we are having a lot of other residentials come in, because, you're near the Metro North, you have your bike lanes, you have everything like that. I've been a resident here all my life, and I've seen a lot of people having to leave because everything is shiny coming in, but it's not shiny coming in necessarily for us. So that's why I want to make sure that local businesses are able to be promoted. Like, this is not a community within the community that we feel isolated and we're not a part of it. So it's great that the park is something that's public and people can actually go there and, have, the same community base that we already have. So I just think that that's something I wanted to say. And lastly, I know that the bike lane is not going to be a thing that's going to be explored if it is on the bridge. I just would like to make this point that any bike lane that may have that's in talks, like if there can be a traffic camera, not a traffic camera, apologies, a traffic light for. I think that I understand that a lot of people have different means of transportation, but we're also seeing a lot of pedestrians maybe getting hit by bikes or cars, being in accidents with bikes. So we want to make sure that our residents have safety when it comes to that as well.
Understood. Well, as Carl said in the beginning, we have the best in the business, Sam Schwartz Engineering, designing the traffic. So we'll definitely, we hear you loud and clear. Safety is the big issue here, accessing the site, but also getting across the bridge safely and, keeping cars and pedestrians separate so there's no accidents. Okay.
Who else we have? Beatrice, you have a question?
Yes. Hi. Thank you, Ron. I'm Beatrice. I'm the chair of the board. Thank you so much for this amazing presentation. I have two questions. One is, and in line with everyone saying, how do we keep this also beneficial to those in our district? And I know that recently there was legislation that was passed that only whatever the percentage was that would be prioritized for residents of this community, it's even less now. Do you have a certain percentage that would be allotted for members of this district, residents of this district 12?
Yeah, it's a good question, Beatrice. I think there was, and I'm not a lawyer, but we have a lawyer on the phone. The housing preference case. Yeah, was it officially reduced to 25% now?
So yes. Oh, sorry. So the preference is dropping to 20%, and then it will be in 5 years. It will be 15% for the local community preference.
But this is, Beatrice, if I may, what I always tell people, who want to get into this building, and it's not easy. It's not easy because of the lottery, but is to educate people to apply. And when the building comes up, you have to apply, get the application in. There are a lot of people that apply for these housing units who don't live here. We realize that, but we have to follow the marketing rules of the city. Now, if the preference goes down, I don't know if that's what that's going to do in a numbers game, because let's be honest, if somebody lives in, or somebody works in Brooklyn, are they going to live in the North Bronx? People who want to live in the North, this is the end of the city here, the North Bronx. Hopefully this will capture most of the people who really want to be here.
And is that percentage per project? I know it's in phases that you're developing. So let's say if it is 20% or 15% per project.
Yeah.
Per building.
Every time we market something, it's going to be the same marketing rules. Yeah.
Okay.
We have to follow the rules that we're told to follow.
Okay. And the home ownership component follows the same rules?
I believe so. I haven't closed one of the homeownership deals in a long time, but I believe so. We'll get back to you on that. That's a very good question. That's a good question.
And then lastly, how did you assess that a school wasn't needed? I know that you said there's going to be pre-K, but how was that assessed?
That's a great question too. We started conversations with the SCA probably 5 years ago.
With who? I missed that. I'm sorry.
With the School Construction Authority, SCA. Okay. First we needed a school, then we didn't, and the numbers went back and forth. The secret numbers right now, the school seat need right now does not trigger the need for a school. Now, that doesn't mean that the School Construction Authority doesn't want to build a school in this district. They're actually looking for a site, or maybe they already got a site to build a school in your district. They're just not going to put it in our development. So we, as good planners, we're leaving that fifth building as an option for a school. We're analyzing it as a school. We're saying, okay, that fifth building could be a school. If it doesn't need to be a school, we'll make it a community facility building.
But that fifth building is the last part of the last phase, correct?
It's part of the last phase, correct. That's right.
Because from what I'm seeing, and again, this is beautiful. We're super excited about this coming to our district, but it is a lot of apartments, and some of them are 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom, so they could be for families. So we could potentially have an increase in the student population in this neighborhood. So I'm just concerned that if the school is potentially the last phase, that it may overcrowd our schools.
Well, it's a good question again. And again, the analysis says that we won't. My recollection is that the development, once it's fully built, is about 300 kids, something like that. School age, grammar school, elementary school kids. Look, let's say the school seat need is up at the time. We can address it down the road, but we're holding that fifth building as a potential school building.
Okay.
And that's, yeah, right now the data doesn't show that there's an overutilization, even assuming the children that would be generated by our development, the data that's provided by DOE. Again, that could change, which is one of the reasons why we're holding this as a space for a
Great.
school. I think it makes sense. And we did hear from the SDA that they are actively looking for another site in this sub-district. So they're presumably in the next 5 years will be another school built.
We tried to save the SCA money. We were going to give them the pad for free for $1, and they're going to go out and pay a market price for a school. But look,
I'm just
we
trying to
did what we could do. We did what we
No,
could
I
do.
get it. I get it.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to figure out how the board can have a conversation with them to really, just before things are set in stone, to see if that really is the case.
Okay, well, feel free.
Okay.
Great questions.
Talene has a question on the call.
I have another question.
Well, Talene is recognized first, Carl. Is Talene there?
Oh, yeah, no, well, recognize me when you're ready.
All right, you got it. Go ahead, Talene.
Hey, good evening. How are you? Just in case, I put my information in the chat. My name is Talene Dickerson. I am the Education and Youth Services Committee Chair, retired teacher, dean, administrator. So, I just wanted to make sure you had my information there because I'm trying to understand with that amount of families and the amount of children. And I don't know if you were planning on having some sort of an after-school place or a gym of some sort or something for kids, because right now, or for young people, I would
Definitely.
love to be part of this conversation.
Thank you. I will definitely reach out to you, Ms. Dickerson, and I have been wanting to know what types of, organizations in the community that we should be talking to, and now is the time that we're getting closer to public review, and I would love to meet with a nonprofit youth services providers, after-school providers, things like that, and that's definitely something we want to incorporate into this plan. I just want to reiterate one more time that the school space is being held, right? So let's say right now the city's data doesn't trigger the need for a school here or like the need for a school because of this development, but that could change in 10 years and we will have that space available for that option if SCA wants to use it.
Right. And Ms. Dickerson, if I could add, I'm sorry. If I could add one thing. Every building, I didn't enunciate this. Every building will have a recreation center in the building, a community room, recreation center in the building. We can make a child space, computer lab, whatever, in every single building. That's not a problem. There's also going to be a daycare center in the building. So that will be, that will capture the need for the young kids. As far as an after school, like a club or something, we can take that into consideration. If we have extra room in, in the first building or the second building, we could maybe do that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Schulman. But I just need to make sure that everybody understands and that everybody, I'm sure, has been watching the news. And you can see where since COVID and since the lockdown, that it's just bananas in the street because there are no facilities, no locations, nothing for the kids to do. So like I have always said, if we don't find something for them to do, someone else will.
Yeah, no, we hear you. We understand. We understand.
I appreciate you listening and like I said, my information, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
No, you're welcome. No,
have a blessed evening.
No, you too. You too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carl, you're recognized with your question.
Okay, thank you. I have a question. We have, back to turning radius, okay? Now, we have a ladder company, 39, which is a true hook and ladder. And its turning radius is similar to an articulated bus. So what happens to the case, God forbid, there is a fire, and he gets in there, how's he going to get out?
So if you want to take that one?
Yeah, I'd have to pull up the information, but Sam Schwartz is investigating FDNY access based on the available vehicles in the district. So, and to be honest, we also have a conversation that we need to have with FDNY because we haven't spoken to them in a little while. So there will be a follow-up conversation with them
Yeah, because it's very important, because ladder 39 operates similar to an articulated bus. And I would be concerned that the vehicle would get trapped in the complex or not be able to get to the location where there's a possible fire at the time, or if they get a second call, the call to your buildings was a false alarm, and then there was a real fire down the road, he won't be able to get out there to address the fire but down below. So I'm very concerned about turning radiuses in the location. And ladder 39 is one of the few houses that have an actual true hook and ladder in the city. There's only like, I think, 5 or 6 fire stations that have a hook and ladder, and there's no plans to replace them. So
we'll definitely
standard truck.
Yeah, we'll definitely make note of that. I mean, we've certainly had a lot of conversations with Sanford about circulation here and turnarounds and turnaround clearances. And you know, we'll definitely take that under consideration and look into that as we re-examine this and discuss with FDNY.
Yeah, no, because I worked closely, again, when I was with Transfer with FDNY when we had construction projects on our road, because we always were looking for the same, width roadway and stuff like that. Now, the other thing I want to tell you about the houses north of Gun Hill on Webster, I was very skeptical when they came in when you made the presentation before Community Board 12 years ago, that this would really actually work. Well, I got to congratulate you guys, because that is really working very well, that project. So you did a great job. Kudos to you. If you do half as good at Wakefield Village, you'll do an outstanding job.
Well, thank you, Carl. We appreciate your dialogue, and the questions are great. Like I said before, whenever there's a question, just get it over to us. We'll get back to you guys. We're still working hard with DOT and city planning to get this into ULURP this year. It's been a long road, the longest rezoning I've ever been on, and we're committed to getting this thing done.
George has a question.
I hope you're successful.
Thank you.
George, go ahead. He's recognized.
Hey, Ron, I have some questions. They're mostly quality of life stuff. So as you guys are planning this, I know you spoke briefly about the plumbing and the sewer system. You guys are elevated, therefore gravity is going to be working in your favor as you pump down this water or as it goes down. I'm concerned because you're tapping into the sewers on Bullard, which are where the private homes are. Are there going to be flooding concerns? My district, this district recently, I would say in the last 10 years, now suffered from flooding concerns on Barnes Avenue, Pittman, Murdoch, places that never got flooded before. But it seems like we're getting a lot of frequency now with these 100-year storms happening every other year. So can you speak to the flooding or how you're dealing with that? You spoke about retention tanks.
Yes.
Is that you're going to store the runoff from your complex?
Well, George, it's a great question. First and foremost, the amount of green here, the trees, the lawns, the landscaping will, soak up as much rainwater as possible, because it's not going to be one big open parking lot. Right now, it is an open parking lot, but the owners don't get flooding in the lot. It doesn't really become a pond when it rains. So the good thing is that the site doesn't flood right now, which is a good starting point. When we have all this landscaping, that's going to capture a lot of water. Any excess water will be designed by a civil engineer that we can't use will go into the sewer, but we will have retainage tanks and pumps and all that to modulate the amount that goes in at one time. So this will be kind of a state-of-the-art type of system tapping into the Bullard Avenue sewer. We had Langen Engineering do a study recently, and they came back to determine that it should be sufficient. But again, as you said, if there's a major storm, we will have control with retainage tanks and pumps and all that to make sure that it doesn't overflow the sewer.
Okay. My second question is, I know that you spoke about I guess from White Plains Road, if I were looking at this, it would only rise about 80 feet up in the air. But my concern is not necessarily White Plains Road. My concern is the people who live on Bullard and Bronx Boulevard. What kind of shadows are you casting onto the private homes there?
That's a great question. And we did that study, and Dove, I don't think we reached the homes, do we?
Sorry, Dove, we can't hear you.
Sorry. Can you hear me better with the video off?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes. We did do the studies. I mean, to be frank, we can share the studies. The distance from the residential units is such, from the residential houses, sorry, is such that there's very little shading, and when it does occur, it occurs, when the sun is actually setting, right? As it's moving to the west, when it's particularly low. So you're talking about a very limited window of the year, and even then, you're only talking about a few houses and not full shading. So the really that 300-foot distance from the warehouses along Bronx Boulevard, right? So sorry, along Bullard Avenue, that 300-foot from the nearest houses is helping to alleviate any sort of threat of shading. But it's that and the orientation of the site. So those two things together are acting to minimize or eliminate any shading.
My last question on quality of life is, Bob, you spoke about the traffic, trucks and deliveries and things of that nature. You spoke briefly, said that they're going to be accessing Baldwin Avenue to get into the site. Is that my understanding, like sanitation, Amazon, all that, the delivery trucks?
We think that sanitation, we would prefer if they come in from Baldwin Street in under the bridge into the complex to get the refuse. Sorry.
I'm sorry, my concern would be, as you know, access, that's a weird part of our district because you actually have to get on the Bronx River, get off, I forget what street that is, Mount Vernon Avenue, and then come down the Queston Parkway to then come back into the Bronx. There's not a direct, like you can't go up to 243rd Street, make a left, and then make your way down because of the train tracks, the Metro North tracks. So I'm just curious, like, is sanitation aware that they're making this effort to go on Baldwin to, like, did you get approvals from the city agencies for all of that?
Not as of yet. I mean, nor I don't think we've had any conversations with sanitation, have we?
No, not yet. Not at this stage in the process.
George, it's a good point. We hear you. We'll look into it. Again, if we have to do refuse collection from the bridge and into the complex, it's not our preference, but if we have to, we will.
Nor would it be anyone's who would be living in this community, right? Like the whole advantage here is that you have a below deck parking structure where you can take your recycling, your potentially required in the future organic diverted waste, right? And your regular trash from underneath. So you don't have all that piled up on the streets, which is, the benefit of planning a new kind of neighborhood this way and not having giant mountains of garbage all over the place.
My final question is not a quality of life question. It's on the size and scope of the number of apartments. So when the documents that are on city planning speak to 1,200 apartments and about 716 parking spaces. If I noticed in the presentation, you said there were 850 parking spaces, and then the slideshow that you gave us, there was 1,100 apartments. The reason I ask all this, and I don't want to speak for any elected officials, but I do speak to elected officials, and one of them in particular was concerned about the size of the number of apartments. As we start this process, Is everything okay with, you said you've had several conversations with the councilman. I'm sure you've had equal number of conversations with the borough president. Is everybody on board with the size and scope of this?
So far, yes, yes. I mean, we had Vanessa Gibson at the site. We've had Councilmember Dinowitz at the site, Assemblyman Dinowitz at the site,
Senator
State,
Bailey, we've spoken
State
to.
Senator Bailey, all the elected officials. George, I don't think anybody has told us don't build this much housing. We've had conversations with Councilmember Dinowitz about parking, and we assured him that we're going to maximize. You know, we can only build so much, but we project 850. I don't know if the ULURP documents say 716 or whatever, but we calculate about 800, 850 unattended. If we do attended parking, or if we ever did stacker parking, we could make that a lot higher. Now, I don't know if that need's going to be there in 5, 6, 7, 8 years if people are not using as many cars. I mean, you know, will people have that many cars? We don't know. I mean, we're going to build what we need, but we have the capacity right now, you know, for that 800, 850 parking spaces.
Okay. No, thank you.
You're welcome. And again, I didn't mention this, but obviously there'll be, you know, electric vehicle charging stations in this garage because most of the cars are going to be turning electric over the next several years. And then lots of bicycle storage areas too.
Okay, I think that concludes all the questions.
Oh, one more.
George, go ahead.
Can one of you tell us, like, what's the process going forward? Like, when do you, I know you said you're looking at summertime maybe for a certification. What's the game plan?
The game plan is we have a lot of homework to do right now from our friends at the DOT. We have to come back with deliverables for DOT to review, which are the sidewalks, the lanes and the signals, and they want us to do a load deck analysis to make sure that the bridge can handle the new sidewalk. They also want us to study the drainage off the bridge. I mean, it's getting a little bit, in my opinion, ridiculous, but we'll do as much as we can do before even ULURP starts. And we'll get these deliverables back to DOT/city planning. We have done from the secret analysis, the EIS, most of it. If they called us up tomorrow and said, guys, we'd like to certify you in ULURP by June 15th, that would be great because we could get it done in time. But with this added stuff added on from the DOT bridge, because we're, you know, obviously the bridge is more complicated than tying into a normal New York City street, we've got to do more work. So we have a bridge engineer we're bringing on. We have our structural engineer working on it. You know, it's complicated stuff, and we realize their concern. But at the end of the day, we're trying to build affordable housing here. And, you know, they're kind of throwing in some extra stuff. We'll get it done. So we want to talk to you guys. You know, we want to come back to you in ULURP this year, George. We'd love to be back by the, you know, before you guys break for the summer, because you're basically off in July and August, right?
Yeah, you said June. We would hate a June because, you know, we're on recess.
That's not the right.
July and August.
Okay, so my bad.
we appreciate it before then. And
time now,
just,
though.
I would imagine we get our new board members by that time too. Like, I mean, the borough president's always trying to speed it up. So, you know, the longer this takes, you may have to come back and give another presentation to a bunch of new board members.
All right, look, it's not a problem. We'll do it. Again, I just want to get it certified in 2024. We've been on this for 7 years. You know, it's been a long, strange trip, but here we are. And we're ready to go into certification and make all these, you know, public hearings. We're ready to talk. We can answer the questions. And I think we're presenting something that's good for the city of New York and good for Wakefield, good for the Bronx.
Well, thank you for the proposal, and thank you to you know, my fellow board members for.
You're welcome. You're welcome, guys. No, we appreciate your support, and we find it a pleasure talking to this board because you guys are so reasonable and rational, and you're not, you know, throwing darts at us. So we appreciate coming here, and there's an open dialogue whenever you guys want to talk. We'll be back.
Okay.
I have one more comment for you.
Carlo, you recognize.
The Wakefield Avenue Bridge is what what it's called, you know it ends in Yonkers. And when the bridge was rebuilt, I guess 15 years ago, maybe a little longer, there was a major issue with Yonkers. They didn't want to cooperate by rebuilding their end, but they eventually had to do it if they wanted the traffic to get across from the Bronx to Yonkers. So you may have a different load issue on the Yonkers side than you do on the Bronx side.
Okay. Okay.
Great point, Carl.
Okay.
Thanks, Carl. Wealth of information, Carl. Thank you.
Anyone have
Well, look, I'm on the board 51 years, so I have a little background.
Did the board give you a gold watch for your 50th year?
No, they gave me a kick in the butt. Only kidding. Only kidding.
Okay. All right, guys.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank
Great
you.
evening. Yep. Take care now.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Hey, bye-bye. Thank you for coming.
You're welcome. Take care.
And I want to thank all the board members that came to the meeting tonight, too. I hope it was very fruitful for all of you. And Robert, I want to thank you for taking control for the meeting for me.
My pleasure, anytime. Do we have a motion?
Close the meeting.
I'll make the motion.
Motion, right?
Motion to close the meeting.
Motion to close the meeting. Is it seconded?
Good night, guys. Have a good night.
All right.
Good night, everybody.
I want to hear all the things you guys are going to talk about now.
Who is that?
I'm going to bed.
Fine. It's Ariel.
Why, I'm gonna talk about why you're not here. This is Ursula.
Oh, because, I just got back